Welcome to Financial Accounting. Today we are going to discuss about the conceptual framework for financial reporting. In fact, you've been discussing about the conceptual framework for financial reporting since your A levels. But most recently, the conceptual framework for financial reporting has been updated. So in fact, that was in 2018. So therefore, in the today's session, we'll be discussing the most updated features of the conceptual framework. Hence, it will be adding value to your existing knowledge. So here we have the today's learning outcomes. At the end of the today's discussion, you should be able to explain what is conceptual framework and describe the evolution of the conceptual framework of financial reporting. So we'll be discussing about the evolution of conceptual framework. Then you are expected to describe the evolution of conceptual framework. Then outline the structure and component of the conceptual framework. So we'll be looking at what is the structure of the conceptual framework and what are the components of the conceptual framework, and explain the component of the conceptual framework. So we'll be taking you in detail what each of these component are. So you are expected at the end of the today's discussion to explain each of these component. And finally, we'll be looking at the benefits and limitation of the conceptual framework. Accordingly, you are expected to explain the benefit and limitation of the conceptual framework. And this is how we have planned the today's discussion. From the very beginning, we'll be looking at the definition of conceptual framework. And thereafter, we'll be discussing why conceptual framework, or we call it the purpose of conceptual framework, or more technically, you can say the rationale for conceptual framework. Then we'll be looking at the evolution of conceptual framework, then the building blocks or the component of the conceptual framework, followed by the benefits and limitations of conceptual framework. So once we done with the today's discussion, you are in a position to answer some of the common questions that you have on the conceptual framework. So you must be able to get clarified in the today's discussion what is a conceptual framework. So we are going to answer that question and the purpose of a conceptual framework, and how did this conceptual framework has evolved, and what are the elements of a conceptual framework, and finally the benefits and limitations of a conceptual framework. So at the end of today's discussion, you would be in a position to answer each of these questions. Let's start with the definition of conceptual framework. We'll see what is a conceptual framework. So in the more general way, we can say the conceptual framework is an established body of concepts. We call it the conceptual framework is an established body of concepts. Or we can say it is the set of guiding principles. The conceptual framework is set of guiding principles. Here the understanding what is required, the conceptual framework is not something unique in accounting. It can be seen in any of the disciplines. If you take a discipline like the general management, if you take a discipline like the business statistics, or if you take a discipline like economics, the conceptual framework can be seen. Even if you take your degree program, it is based on a particular conceptual framework. So when it comes to designing your degree program, so it is based on a particular conceptual framework. So the particular thinking is there behind the development of these degree programs. So in fact, it is a set of guiding principles. So you know that when you take your degree program, so it's a 4-year degree program and it's a requirement for a special degree. So you are learning for a special degree. So the 4-year is a requirement. In that, you'll be learning around 40 subjects. You'll be learning around 40 subjects together with a research component. That is how your degree program is designed. This every aspect of this degree program, it is developed based on a set of guiding principles. So there are lots of regulations and requirement behind. So in line with these regulations, guidelines, your degree program is designed. So therefore, your degree program is also based on a conceptual framework. Even if you take your financial accounting course, it is based on set of guiding principles. So from the very beginning, we had made available what is the cost specification. There you would have seen what is the content that you are going to learn. So it was developed based on a set of guiding principles. And similarly, you've been communicated how you are going to get assessed. What is your continuous assessment component and what is your final examination component? It is well explained. And also, from the beginning, we have made it very clear what is the learning outcomes that we expect to develop. What are the learning outcomes that we expect from you at the end of this particular course? So these learning outcomes have been developed referring to set of guiding principles. So accordingly, as far as your course is concerned, the financial accounting course, it is based on a conceptual framework. So therefore, you must be clear in thinking the conceptual framework is something not unique to accounting, but it can be seen in any of the instance where a particular decision being made based on set of guiding principles. So that is how we define the conceptual framework. That is how we explain the conceptual framework. But here we are going to focus on the conceptual framework for financial reporting. As far as the conceptual framework for financial reporting is concerned, we can look at a standard definition that is being provided by the US accounting standard setting body, the accounting standard setting body of the USA, we call it the FASB, the Financial Accounting Standard Board. They have given a precise definition on conceptual framework. They define the conceptual framework as a coherent system of interrelated objectives and fundamentals that is expected to lead to consistent standard. In this definition, it highlights, would say, uh, three main aspects. The first two aspects, it talks about the interrelated objectives and fundamentals. So it talks about the objectives and fundamentals. In fact, that is what we call the content of a conceptual framework. Content of a conceptual framework. So this would be something very familiar to you since your A levels, you know the component of a conceptual framework. The conceptual framework starts with an objective. So that is to provide financial information to resource providers. So therefore, that is what we call the objective. Then what about the fundamentals? The fundamentals mean the rest of the component. There you have the qualitative characteristics of financial information, the definition of the elements of financial statements, the recognition, measurement, presentation, and disclosure. So these are the other components of conceptual framework. So therefore, initially it talks about the content of the conceptual framework. So it is something that is interrelated objectives and fundamentals. So they call it, it's a coherent system. The coherent system means a logical system. These are logically connected aspects, the logically connected component. So everything starts with the objective. So that is the starting point of the conceptual framework. Based on this objective, the rest of the component is logically connected to accomplish the objective of financial reporting. That is expected to lead to consistent standard. The other component, it is about the consistent standard. It talks about the purpose of the conceptual framework. Purpose of the conceptual framework. The very purpose of the conceptual framework is to facilitate or support the consistent and logical development of accounting standard. So therefore, when you look at this definition, it talks about the content of the conceptual framework as well as the purpose of the conceptual framework. So it's a comprehensive definition on conceptual framework. And it prescribes the nature, functions, and limits of financial accounting and financial statement. So the conceptual framework further explains or prescribes what is the nature of financial reporting, what is the functions of financial reporting, and what are the limitations of financial reporting. So it prescribes the nature. So basically, in financial reporting, we focus about the financial information. So that would be the nature of financial reporting. And the functions, so we want to generate the financial information and we need to communicate that financial information. So therefore, there are two broad aspects, the generation of financial information and communication of financial information. Not only that, it talks about the limitations of financial reporting. So there can be certain limitations. So they would talk about these limitations as well. එතකොට අපි කතා කරේ conceptual framework එකක් කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියන එක. ඒතර conceptual framework එකක් කියන්නේ ඇත්තටම set of guiding principles. බොහොම සරලව කිව්වොත් set of guiding principles that will guide a particular decision. So it's a set of guiding principles which guides a particular decision. එතකොට යම්කිසි තීරණයක් බේස් වෙනවා නම් set of guiding principles මත ඔන්න අපි කියනවා එතන ඒ set of guiding principles කියන්නේ conceptual framework එකක් කියලා. එතකොට මේ conceptual framework කියන එක accounting වලට විතරක් unique දෙයක් නෙමෙයි. ඒතර අපි ගත්තොත් management කියන area එක, general management ඔය කියන discipline එකෙත් conceptual frameworks තියෙනවා. ඒතර අපි ගත්තොත් business statistics වගේ දෙයක් එතනත් conceptual framework එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම economics අපි ගත්තොත් conceptual frameworks තියෙනවා. එතනින් එහාට ගිහිල්ලා අපි consider කරොත් අපේ degree program එක. පුතාලගේ degree program එක. ඒතර ඒකත් ඇත්තටම develop වෙන්නේ යම්කිසි set of guiding principles වලට අනුවනේ. එතකොට මේ degree program එකක් design කරනකොට ඒකට අපි හිතලා තියෙනවා මේකේ special degree එකක් වෙන්න ඕනේ කියලා. එතකොට ඒක special degree එකක් වෙන්න නම් මේකේ 4-year time period එකක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ. මේවා guidelines. අපි ඒවට comply වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒතර ඒත් එක්කම යම්කිසි credit value එකක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ. ඒක පුතාලා දන්නවා සෑම course එකකටම යම්කිසි credit value එකක් තියෙනවා. උදාහරණයක් විදිහට අපි financial accounting course එක ගත්තොත් credit value එක 3ක්. ඒතර මේ වගේ subjects පහක් සාමාන්‍යයෙන් semester එකකට credit value එක 15 වගේ වෙනවා. ඒතර පුතාලට semesters degree program එක ඇතුලේ 8ක් තියෙනවා. එහෙනම් එතනදී අපිට පේනවා credit value 240ක් වගේ සම්පූර්ණ කරන්න ඕනේ. එතකොට special degree එකක් complete කරන්න නම් credit value එක 240 වෙන්න ඕනේ. ඒකට මේවා තමයි guiding principles. ඒත් එක්කම degree එකේ research component එකක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ. subjects 40ක් research component එකක්. මේවා තමයි guiding principles when you are designing a particular degree program. particular degree program එකක් design කරනකොට ඔය කියන requirements ටික තියෙන්න ඕනේ. ඒතර එතනිනුත් එහාට ඇවිල්ලා අපි හිතුවොත් යම්කිසි කෝස් එකක් උදාහරණයක් විදිහට අපි මේ ෆයිනෑන්ෂල් accounting කෝස් එක. ඒකත් ඇත්තටම පදනම් වෙලා තියෙන යම්කිසි conceptual framework එකක්. Conceptual framework in the sense set of guiding principles. ඒතර guiding principles set එකක් තියෙනවා. අපි මේ course එක design කරද්දී course එක deliver කරද්දී we have to do that in line with that. දැන් මුලින්ම අපි පුතාලට course outline එකක් දුන්නා. එතනදී අපි පැහැදිලි කරා මොකක්ද මේ course එකකින් අපි අපේක්ෂා කරන learning outcomes. The intended learning outcomes. මේ course එක complete කරපුවම පුතාලා තුල develop වෙන්න ඕනේ learning outcomes මොනවද? පුතාලා develop කරගන්න ඕනේ learning outcomes මොනවද කියන එක. එතනින් එහා පැත්තට ගිහිල්ලා අපි clarify කරා අපි make it clear මොකක්ද content එක අපි deliver කරන්නේ. ඊට පස්සේ කොහොමද පුතාලා assess කරන්නේ? assessment එක. ඊට පස්සේ course policies. There's a 80% attendance requirement. You need to attend the lectures regularly before this corona pandemic comes, right? And you'll be having lectures on a weekly basis. It will go for like 15 weeks time, and each week we'll be meeting for 2 sessions. මේ වගේ යම් guiding principles තිබුණා. එහෙනම් මේ course එකක් design වෙලා තියෙන්නේ යම්කිසි conceptual framework එකකට අනුකූලව. නමුත් මෙතනදී අපි සාකච්ඡා කරන්න උත්සාහ කරන්නේ financial accounting, financial reporting වලට අදාළ conceptual framework එක. Financial reporting වලට අදාළ conceptual framework එක. එහෙමනම් අපිට හොඳ starting point එකක් වෙයි the conceptual framework develop කරන established body එකක් issue කරපු definition එකකින් පටන් ගන්න එක. එතනදී අපි අඳුරගන්න තියෙනවා Financial Accounting Standards Board, that is the accounting standard setting body of the USA. or USA වල තියෙන accounting standard setting body එක තමයි Financial Accounting Standards Board. In fact, they are the ones who developed the first conceptual framework in financial reporting. So financial reporting වල පළවෙනි conceptual framework එක හැදුවෙත් මේ Financial Accounting Standards Board එක. එහෙමනම් අපිට පුළුවන් ඒ definition එක refer කරන්න. ඒ definition එකේ කියනවා it's a coherent system of interrelated objectives and fundamentals. ඒ කියන්නේ logical system of interrelated objectives and fundamentals. Coherent system in the sense logical system. ඒක යම්කිසි logical system එකක්. logical system එකක් ඒක logically connect වෙලා තියෙනවලු objective එක සහ fundamentals. objectives and fundamentals. එතකොට මේක පුතාලා දන්න කාරණාව. එතකොට conceptual framework එක ගත්තාම මේකේ content එකනේ. එතකොට conceptual framework එක අපි දන්නවා objective එකක් අඳුර ගන්නවා. එහෙනම් ඒකට තමයි මේ අපි objectives කියලා තියෙන්නේ. ඊට අමතරව fundamentals. ඒ කියන්නේ qualitative characteristics of financial information තියෙනවා. definition of elements of financial statements. එතකොට යම්කිසි මූල්‍යමය තොරතුරක තිබිය යුතු ගුණාත්මක ගති ලක්ෂණ. ඒ වගේම මූල්‍ය ප්‍රකාශනවල මූලිකාංගවල නිර්වචන, recognition, measurement, presentation. එතකොට මේ කියන කාරණාවලට තමයි අපි කියන්නේ fundamentals. එතකොට ඒ objectives සහ fundamentals වෙනම අරන් තියෙන්නේ. එතකොට අපිට importance එකක්, prominence එකක් දෙන්න ඕනේ objective එකට. එතකොට objective එක තමයි ප්‍රධානම දේ. ඒක මත පදනම් වෙලා තමයි අනිකුත් fundamentals decide වෙන්නේ. ඒ නිසා තමයි අපි මේක interrelated objectives සහ fundamentals කියලා හඳුනාගන්නේ. ඒක basically ඇත්තටම content of a conceptual framework. ඊට පස්සේ that is expected to lead to consistent standard. එතකොට ඒ කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? ඒක තමයි ඇත්තටම conceptual framework එකේ purpose එක. මොකක්ද? Consistent and logical development of an accounting standard. එතකොට conceptual framework එකේ පරමාර්ථය තමයි logical සහ consistent development of a accounting standard කියන කාරණා. එහෙමනම් මේ definition එක ගොඩක් comprehensive. ඒක තුල අපි කතා කරනවා content of the conceptual framework as well as the purpose of the conceptual framework. ඊටත් අමතරව එතනින් සඳහන් කරනවා මේ conceptual framework එකක් prescribe කරනවලු nature, functions and limitations of financial reporting. ඒතර financial reporting වල ස්වභාවය මොකක්ද? ඒකේ functions මොනවද? සහ ඒකේ limitations මොනවද කියන එක. එතකොට nature එක බැලුවොත් අපි basically report කරන්නේ financial information නේ. එතකොට අපි nature එක financial information. And also we are reporting on the past information නේ. අපි අතීත තොරතුරු තමයි වාර්තා කරන්නේ. එතකොට ඒක තමයි nature of financial reporting. එතකොට functions බැලුවොත් එතකොට functions basically අපි කරන්නේ information generate කරනවා. financial information generate කරනවා. ඒ information communicate කරනවා. එතකොට ඒක තමයි functions of financial reporting. ඊට පස්සේ limitations. එතකොට limitations වලට ආවම අපිට basically කියන්න පුළුවන් we talk about the monetary items නේ. What can be expressed in terms of money would get recorded. එතකොට මූල්‍යමය වශයෙන් වටිනාකමක් තියෙන දේවල් විතරයි අපි financial reporting වලදී කතා කරන්නේ. ඒ වගේම we are not going to talk about the social and environmental information. Nowadays we know that the social and environmental information are getting the prominence නේ. ඒතර වර්තමානයේ වෙනකොට අපි මූල්‍ය තොරතුරු වලින් එහාට ගිහිල්ලා ව්‍යාපාරයක් සම්බන්ධයෙන් තියෙන පාරිසරික තොරතුරු, ව්‍යාපාරයක තියෙන පාරිසරික බලපෑම, ව්‍යාපාරය තුලින් සමාජයේ තියෙන බලපෑම මේ වගේ aspects කතා කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. නමුත් financial reporting වලට ඒක කිරීමේ හැකියාවක් නැහැ. මොකද අපි කතා කරන්නේ financial information විතරයි. මේවා some of the limitations of financial reporting. So everything is explained by a conceptual framework. Right. Now we are going to do an important relationship about the concepts that you had learned during your A levels. තර පුතාලා මේ A levels වලදීත් ඉගෙනගෙන තියෙන concepts ටිකක් තමයි මෙතන අපි කතා කරන්නේ. අපි එතන බලන්න උත්සාහ කරනවා යම්කිසි relationship එකක්. Let's see what is the relationship among the conceptual framework, counting standards, and general purpose financial statements. I believe that from the definition what we had discussed, it would be clear to you what is the relationship between the conceptual framework and accounting standards. The relationship between the conceptual framework and the accounting standards is very clear, because we agree that the conceptual framework, the very purpose is to facilitate the logical and consistent development of the accounting standard. Or based on the conceptual framework, the accounting standards are developed. Accounting standards are developed. So therefore, there's a relationship between the conceptual framework and accounting standards. So the theoretical foundation, theoretical underpinning is provided by the conceptual framework in order to develop the accounting standards. Based on these accounting standards, it will govern the general purpose financial statements. The accounting standards is applicable for the preparation and presentation of the general purpose financial statement. You know, there are around 40 accounting standards, the CFRSs and LKSs, and that is applicable for the preparation and presentation of general purpose financial statement. So accordingly, you can see a kind of broad relationship. The conceptual framework and accounting standards is linked, and accounting standards and general purpose financial statement is linked. So therefore, in broad, these three are interconnected concepts. Based on the conceptual framework, accounting standards is developed. Based on the accounting standards, the preparation and presentation of general purpose financial statements is determined. So that is what the relationship. So what is this general purpose financial statement? So you know what is the conceptual framework we have just discussed. And if you look at the accounting standards, it is also the prescriptions issued time to time by a professional accounting body. So that is what the accounting standard. So if you take Sri Lanka, so we know, so it is the Accounting Standards Committee of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka is the professional accounting body that issues the accounting standards in Sri Lanka. So therefore, it's basically a prescription that is issued by the professional accounting bodies time to time. Then what about the general purpose financial statement? We talk about the general purpose financial statement. The general purpose financial statement means the financial statement that is intended to meet the needs of users who are not in a position to demand the financial reports tailored to their precise information need. That's what the standard definition that is being given on the general purpose financial statement. So just to tell you, this is a financial statement that is intended to meet the needs of users who are not in a position to require an entity to tailor the financial statements to their precise information need. Or in simple words, I can say it is intended to meet the needs of users who are not in a position to demand whatever the information that they want from an organization. They are not in such kind of privileged position. They can't demand whatever the information that they want. They simply depends on the information that the management communicate to them. To make it very clear, think about yourself. Put yourself as a shareholder of one of the biggest conglomerate. Let's say that you are a shareholder of John Keel's Holdings. And if you want to request information about the strategy, so let's say that when you are going to finalize your investment decision, you need to have some idea about what are their future strategies. So future strategy information you want, and then you are going to request that information from the John Keel's Holdings management. So in fact, you can request, but they are not going to entertain that. They are not going to entertain that. So that is the poor position of an investor. So consequently, if you take the context of a business, so more dominantly in the business world, we have companies. So if you take a company scenario, you would see this reality. So the management, the ownership is separated from the management. Owners are one party, the managers is another party. So if you take the owners, that is going to be the shareholders. On the other hand, if you take the management is taken care by the board of directors and its subcommittees, especially the management committee, board of directors and the management committee. So in this particular case, you can see uh, the general purpose financial statements will come into play. So the owners would need information from the management, uh, but the management is not going to provide all the information that is requested by the investors, but instead they would provide some selected piece of information. And that's what we call the general purpose financial statement that is intended to meet the needs of investors and the resource providers who are not in a position to demand the whatever the information that they want from an organization. So therefore they simply depends on the information that the management communicate to them. So that is what we call the general purpose financial statement. So it is prepared in line with the accounting standard. In compliance with the accounting standards, these financial statements are prepared, and that is why we call it the general purpose financial statement. So it is prepared based on the accounting standards. So therefore, the investors can rely on this statement. Not only that, even this financial statement subject to audits as well. So therefore, the reliable piece of information is communicated to the management, communicated by the management to the outside parties or the external parties, especially the resource providers. That is what the general purpose financial statements mean. So having look at the component separately, so if you are trying to make a kind of more sense out of this, I can help you with a kind of simplified thinking. You can think conceptual framework. As far as conceptual framework is concerned, it is something similar to a constitution of a country. අපිට කියන්න පුළුවන් conceptual framework එක කියන්නේ නිකන් රටක තියෙන ව්‍යවස්ථාවක් වගේ. It's a constitution of a country. Based on the constitution, the laws of the country would be formed. So මේ constitution එක මතට පදනම් වෙලා තමයි රටක නීති රීති හැදෙන්නේ. Based on these laws, the society is governed. So මේ නීති රීති මත පදනම් වෙලා තමයි society එක govern වෙන්නේ. Similarly, the conceptual framework, based on the conceptual framework, the accounting standards would be developed. And depending on these accounting standards, it will govern the accounting practice. More precisely, it will govern the preparation and presentation of general purpose financial statement. So therefore, it is quite like the scenario what we had explained above. The conceptual framework is something similar to the constitution of a country. Accounting standard is something similar to laws of the country. The society, which is governed by the laws, is similar to kind of accounting practice that is governed by the accounting standards. So that is what the logical relationship. Then, when it comes to the the conceptual framework, if you think about what is the primary task? What is the primary task of a conceptual framework? Or what this conceptual framework does? It basically addresses the broad issues in general purpose financial reporting. So in fact, it is about the objective of general purpose financial statement. The conceptual framework prescribe what is the objective, then what are the qualitative characteristics, the definition of elements, recognition, measurement, presentation. All these things are made clear by the conceptual framework. The conceptual framework addresses the broad issues in general purpose financial reporting. So that is what the conceptual framework does. Then what the accounting standards does? The accounting standards, they would address the narrow issues. So you know there are accounting standards relating to the elements of financial statements, no? The assets, liabilities, income, expenses and equity. So relating to these elements, the accounting standards are there. For example, if you take the PPE, so it is a asset item. So in that, there is an applicable accounting standard, that is LKS 16 likewise. So therefore, when it comes to the accounting standard, it basically addresses the narrow set of issues in a particular element of financial statement, right? It will address a kind of narrow set of issues. But here, the conceptual framework talks about the broader set of issues, whereas the accounting standards will take care of a narrow set of issues. तर මෙතනදී අපි සාකච්ඡා කරේ conceptual framework, accounting standards සහ general purpose financial statements අතර තියෙන සම්බන්ධතාවය. तर එතනදී අපි දැක්කා accounting standards develop වෙන්නේ conceptual framework එකක මත පදනම් වෙලා general purpose financial statements අපි prepare කරන්නේ සහ present කරන්නේ accounting standards වල requirement වලට අනුකූලව. එතකොට මේක තමයි conceptual framework, accounting standards සහ general purpose financial statements අතර තියෙන සම්බන්ධතාවය. එතකොට conceptual framework එක කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියන එක අපි පැහැදිලි කළා පහුගිය slide එකේදී. එතකොට accounting standards කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියන එක කතා කරොත් එතකොට අපි කියනවා ඒක prescription issued by the professional accounting body time to time. එතකොට කාලෙන් කාලෙට professional accounting body එකකින් issue කරන prescriptions වලට තමයි අපි accounting standards කියලා කියන්නේ. So it's like so if you take Sri Lanka, there we have the accounting standards committee of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, and they are the ones who adopt the accounting standards. They are the ones who develop the accounting standards. In fact, we adapt the accounting standards. Ne? එතකොට ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ accounting standards adapt කිරීමේ බලය තියෙන්නේ accounting standards committee එකට. Accounting standards committee of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka. So time to time එයාලා යම් prescriptions issue කරනවා. ඒතකොට ඒවා තමයි අපි කියන්නේ accounting standards කියලා. එතකොට general purpose financial statements කියන්නේ general purpose financial statements අරමුණු කරන්නේ යම්කිසි ව්‍යාපාරයක අපි ගත්තොත් interested parties, especially the resource providers ලා ගත්තොත් අපි යාළගේ position එක බැලුවොත් අපිට පේනවා resource providers ලා විදියට ඉන්නවා investors, lenders, creditors නේ basically. ඒතර මේ පාර්ශවයන්ට පුළුවන් ද ව්‍යාපාරයෙන් තමන්ට අවශ්‍ය information demand කරන්න. උදාහරණයක් විදිහට අපි ගත්තොත් shareholder කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා John Keells Holdings company එකේ. ඒතකොට biggest conglomerate. ඒතකොට ඒ පුද්ගලයා තමන්ගේ investment decisions ගද්දී යට හිතෙනවා මට අවශ්‍යයි John Keells Holdings company එකේ group of company එකේ අනාගත strategies objectives මොනවද කියන එක දැනගන්න. ඒ නිසා මේ පුද්ගලයා decide කරනවා management එකෙන් request කරන්න ඔය කියන strategy and objective related information. එතකොට what the management will do? ඒ පුද්ගලයාට request එකක් කරන්න පුළුවන්. But the management is not going to entertain that. The management එක ඒකට attend වෙන්නේ නැහැනේ. එතකොට ඒක තමයි poor position of the investor or the resource provider. So this is the case when it comes to the company context. In a company context, the most significant feature is the ownership is separated from the management. ownership එකයි management එකෙන් separate වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. එතනදී owners ලා වෙන්නේ shareholders ලා, management එක වෙන්නේ board of directors and the management subcommittees. එතන ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන් board of directors and the management committee එක. ඒතර එයාලා තමයි ව්‍යාපාරය manage කරන්නේ. ඒතර මේ වගේ අවස්ථාවක අපිට පේනවා ownership එක management එකෙන් separate වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. owners ලාට බෑ නැත්නම් shareholders ලාට බෑ තමන්ට අවශ්‍ය information management එකෙන් request කරලා ලබා ගන්න. එතනදී තමයි ඔය කියන general purpose financial statements වල අවශ්‍යතාවය එන්නේ. එතකොට මේ අවශ්‍යතාවය අඳුනගෙන තියෙනවා accounting වල. එතකොට මේ considering the poor position of these resource providers or considering the poor position of the investors, the accounting, the regulatory framework would require this management of a company, management of a business to communicate some sort of information to the investors in order to facilitate them with their decision making. And that is where these general purpose financial statements will come into play. So the general purpose financial statement are the financial statement that is prepared in compliance with the accounting standards. The financial statement that is prepared in line with these accounting standards must be communicated to these owners. එතකොට general purpose financial statements වෙන්නේ ඔය ශ්‍රී ලංකා in the context of Sri Lanka. එතකොට ශ්‍රී ලංකා financial reporting standards වලට අනුව prepare කරපු financial statements තමයි අපි කියන්නේ general purpose financial statement in the context of Sri Lanka. ඒ information ටික අපි communicate කරනවා owners ලාට. So therefore they can make use of that piece of information that the management communicate and thereby they can make the decisions. එතකොට ඒ තොරතුරු මත පදනම් වෙලා තීරණ ගන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට මේක තමයි general purpose financial statements කියන්නේ. Right. Then let's see the second most important feature of the conceptual framework. First we discuss about the objective of conceptual framework, and now we are going to looking at, so first we discuss about the definition of conceptual framework. Now we are going to looking at the purpose of a conceptual framework. As I explained even earlier, the purpose of a conceptual framework is the logical and consistent development of a accounting standard. It is the logical and consistent development of the accounting standard. When the conceptual framework perceives the logical and consistent development of accounting standard, they need to clarify certain things. They need to clarify the certain things. And what those things are. The conceptual framework need to make it clear, very clear, what do you mean by financial reporting? And what is its scope? What is a reporting entity? What is the objectives of financial reporting? So these are some of the general concerns. These are some of the broad issues that would come into play when it comes to the development of logical and consistent standard. So therefore, these issues need to be made very clear by the conceptual framework. And what are the qualitative characteristics that the financial information should possess? And what are the elements of financial statement, the recognition and measurement, and finally the presentation and disclosure. So this would be the aspects or the broad issues that the conceptual framework is expected to make it clear in the pursuit of the logical and consistent development of a accounting standard. In the absence of a clear idea on these issues, what can happen is the accounting standards will be developed in an ad hoc manner. Without agreement on the above mentioned issues, above mentioned areas, the ultimate negative consequence is the accounting standards will be developed in an ad hoc manner, not in a logical way, but in an ad hoc manner. Then what is the implication? Then there would be limited consistency would be evident between the accounting standards in the absence of a conceptual frame. So if you consider about the consistency in the accounting standards, there won't be a limited or no consistency in the accounting standards because the conceptual framework has failed to clarify the above issues. So when it comes to the logical and consistent development of the accounting standard, the above mentioned issues has to be very clearly clarified. And in fact, that's what the conceptual framework does. එතකොට අපි කතා කරා conceptual framework එකේ තියෙන ප්‍රධානම purpose එක. ඒක අපි කලින් සාකච්ඡා කරපු විදිහට logical සහ consistent development of accounting standard. එතකොට මේක තමයි very purpose එක නේ. එතනදී ඔය logical සහ consistent development of accounting standards සිද්ධ වෙන්න නම් අපි clarify කරගත යුතු නැත්නම් conceptual framework එක clarify කළ යුතු issues ගණනාවක් තියෙනවා. එතකොට මුලින්ම කියන්න ඕනේ financial reporting සහ එහි විෂයපතේ මොකක්ද කියන එක. ඒ වගේම reporting entity එකක් කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? financial reporting වල අරමුණ මොකක්ද? මොනවද qualitative characteristic of a financial information? And what are the elements of financial statement? What are the recognition and measurement? The presentation and disclosure. දැන් මේ දේවල් ටික බොහොම පැහැදිලිව ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න ඕනේ conceptual framework එකක් විසින්. එහෙම නොකළොත් මොකක්ද සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ? accounting standards develop වෙනවා ad hoc විදියට. කියන්නේ කිසිම logical විදිහකට නෙමෙයි. In logical way. It is not in a logical way. So that is the negative side. ඒක ප්‍රතිඵලයක් විදියට සිද්ධ වෙන්න පුළුවන් මොකක්ද? accounting standards අතර accounting standards වල අපි limited consistency එකක් තමයි දකින්නේ. කිසිම consistency එකක් නැහැ. මොකද the above issues was not made very clear. If the conceptual framework has not made the above issues very clear, so then ultimately the consistency would be compromised. නේ. එතකොට එහෙම වුණොත් consistency එකක් තියෙන්නේ නැති වෙයි. accounting standards අතර accounting standards develop වීමේදී කිසිම consistency එකක් නැති වෙයි. එතකොට එක එක විදිහට ad hoc විදිහට accounting standards develop වෙයි. මොකද different interpretations දෙන්න පුළුවන් මේ කියන කාරණා සම්බන්ධයෙන්. එතකොට reporting entity එක කියන එක accounting standard setting body එකක් එක විදිහකට දකින්න පුළුවන්. තව accounting standard setting body එකක් තව විදිහකට දකින්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට මේ වගේ විවිධ interpretations තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. different interpretations තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට සමහරක් qualitative characteristics විදිහට වෙන වෙන items අඳුර ගන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට තව standard setting body එකක් ඊට වඩා හාත්පසින්ම වෙනස් දෙයක්. එතකොට මේ වගේ different interpretations තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට ඒක තුල suffer කරන්නේ accounting standards would be developed in an ad hoc manner and there would be limited consistency. ඒකේ ප්‍රතිඵලයක් විදිහට, right? So that is about the purpose of conceptual framework. It's about the ultimate logical and consistent development of accounting standard. Then we'll focus on the evolution of conceptual framework. So we believe that it is better to know something about the history of the development of this conceptual framework. In fact, when it comes to this development of a conceptual framework, the initial efforts on the development of a conceptual framework is witnessed somewhere in 1920s and 1930s. The efforts have been made on development of a conceptual framework since at that time. So therefore, it is nearly 100 years back. The efforts have been made. The 100 years back, the efforts have been made on the development of a conceptual framework. So one of the marked or remarkable uh, effort that had been made in the past was somewhere in 1936. The American Accounting Association, they have initially issued a kind of statement of accounting principles. So that is one of the efforts towards the development of a conceptual framework. There they had managed to issue the statement of accounting principles. So they had identified several set of accounting principles, and then they have codified that, and then they have issued that. And I believe this American Accounting Association is something familiar to you. So because somewhere in 1940s, somewhere in early 1940s, they have given a comprehensive definition on accounting. So therefore, it is something familiar to you. And also another remarkable effort is witnessed in the history that was in 1958. That is again from an American institute, we call it AICPA, American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. They have issued something called tentative set of broad accounting principles. Tentative set of broad accounting principles. So they have issued that a kind of tentative. So it is not something mandatory, but it is tentative set of broad accounting principles that is to be followed by the public sector entities in the USA. So why they have called it tentative? Because what the ideas what they had proposed, especially this measurement, they have proposed the current cost instead of the historical cost. They went against the historical cost. So therefore, at that time, that particular idea was considered as too radical, too radical. So therefore, the accounting community was not ready to accept what they were saying. So that is another remarkable feat that had been made somewhere in 1960s. But here, we are not going to talk about that much of history. What is important as far as the first year students is concerned, we believe that it is good enough for you to know the recent history. That is in the sense we are starting talking about the history from 1978. In 1978, the first formal conceptual framework is established by the US accounting standard setting body. We call it, that is the Financial Accounting Standards Board. So therefore in the history, so one of the main milestones is witnessed in 1978. They developed this conceptual framework, the first ever formal conceptual framework. Then thereafter, you know that conceptual framework is not something constant or static. It's subject to changes. When the logics behind the thinking get changed, so this conceptual framework will subject to change. So therefore, from 1978 to 2018, there were like 8 amendments or 8 improvements, changes have been made to this conceptual framework. We call it, that is a statement of financial accounting concepts. The Financial Accounting Standards Board had issued 8 statement of financial accounting concept. It is in fact the revisions, the amendments, improvements to the existing conceptual framework. So therefore, the what you can think of, so it gets evolved over a period of 4 decades, and even in the future, you can expect this conceptual framework would evolve. Conceptual framework would evolve. But as far as the Sri Lanka is concerned, the conceptual framework which is applicable for us is the IASB conceptual framework, that is the International Accounting Standards Board conceptual framework. In that, it is what that had been issued by the rest of the world. Rest of the world in the sense, because FASB is the Financial Accounting Standards Board, which is in operation in the USA. So the rest of the world is, except USA, that is called the rest of the world. So when it comes to the IASB, initially the UK, the United Kingdom, the Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the France, the Ireland, countries like that, the accounting, the professional accounting bodies of these countries, they have formed the International Accounting Standards Committee, in fact. So before this IASB had come into play, it was known like International Accounting Standards Committee, IASC. But now it is known as IASB, so therefore we refer it as IASB. So they form the kind of community, accounting community, which is known by the International Accounting Standards Committee or Accounting Standards Board. So they have issued their first conceptual framework, which is applicable for the rest of the world. But in that, when they are developing their conceptual framework, they have drawn almost all of the concepts from the Financial Accounting Standards Board. That is how it is said. Then they were in operation, the IASB in operation, uh, so even for today. But there was another milestone in the history that in 2005 to 2010, the IASB and FASB had come in to a kind of convergence project to jointly work towards a single conceptual framework for the whole world. One conceptual framework for the whole world. Since 2005 to 2010, these two dominant accounting standard setting bodies had tried for one conceptual framework. But in fact, they have planned this kind of framework to be implemented in 8 phases, in 8 stages. But from 2005 to 2010, what they could accomplish is only the first phase. The first phase, in the sense, they could only agree on the objective of financial reporting and the qualitative characteristics of financial information. That's all what they could accomplish. They couldn't agree on the definition of the elements of financial statement, the recognition, measurement. They couldn't agree on that. So therefore, that particular project had come to an end in 2010 with the issuance of the revised conceptual framework. So the existing framework of the IASB, they have revised that and they have updated the objective section and also objectives as well as the qualitative characteristics together with the underlying assumption. That is all what it got updated in the 2010 conceptual framework, right? The objectives and the qualitative characteristics. Then what the concept IASB did thereafter, they start working independently, even the FASB start working independently. Then this IASB had managed on their own or independently to come up with a complete conceptual framework. For the first draft of the conceptual framework, they managed to issue that for the public comments in 2013. You know, when it comes to the development of accounting standard, when it comes to the development of accounting conceptual framework, it must be carried out in several stages. So first you have to develop the initial draft and that must be issued for the public comments, the comments from the accounting community. So the accounting, professional accounting bodies, the academics, the practitioners. So those parties would comment on the conceptual framework. And also the multinational companies, the dominant multinational companies, they would comment on the conceptual framework. So for that particular purpose, the IASB had issued their first draft in 2013. Then they have welcomed the comments from the accounting community. So the professional accounting bodies, academics, uh, practitioners, the multinational companies, they have commented on that By accommodating the appropriate comments, they have issued, I would say, the second draft in 2015. We call it the exposure draft. When it comes to the exposure draft, how it is different from the discussion paper. When it comes to the discussion paper, it is initially issued by the it is something that is independently developed by the International Accounting Standards Body, International Accounting Standards Board, and then they make it publish. But when it comes to the exposure draft, there they have the comments that was received on the discussion paper. They would simply accommodate the sum of the valid comments, and then they improve their first draft and they would issue the second draft. So therefore it's a kind of improved version. So there are the public comments, the comments from the accounting community had been accommodated. And then this particular draft is again issued for the public comments, and that's how it works. The accounting community can further comment on that, and once it is agreed, the final conceptual framework is issued in 2018 May. So therefore, most recently, they have revised all the components and a comprehensive conceptual framework is issued in 2018. And that particular conceptual framework become valid from the period starting from 1st of January 2018, 1st of January 2000, sorry, 1st of January 2020. It become applicable. It is about the evolution of conceptual framework. So මෙතනදී අපි කතා කරා conceptual framework එක කොහොමද evolve වුනේ කියන කාරණාව. එතනදී අපි දැනගත යුතුයි මේ conceptual framework එකක් සම්බන්ධයෙන් තියෙන efforts අපිට දකින්න පුළුවන් 1920s 1930s වල විතර ඉඳලා 1920 1930 වගේ ඉඳලා දකින්න පුළුවන්. ඒතර මේ efforts initially made by the Americans. So the initial efforts is made by American Accounting Association and American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. So මේ වගේ dominant American bodies විසින් American accounting bodies විසින් මේ efforts මූලිකව සිද්ධ කරලා තියෙනවා. නමුත් අපි එච්චර ඉතිහාසයකට යන්නේ නැතුව අපිට recent history එක දැනගත්තාම ප්‍රමාණවත්. ඒත් අපි හිතනවා the first formal effort on the conceptual framework is made in 1978. That is again by a dominant US body. In fact, that is the accounting standard setting body of USA. We call it FASB. They have issued the first conceptual frame. The FASB Financial Accounting Standards Board එක තමයි පළවෙනි conceptual framework එක formal conceptual framework එකක් issue කරන්නේ financial reporting සඳහා. එතකොට මේ conceptual framework එක evolve වෙනවා. ඒතකොට 1978 ඉඳලා 2018 වෙනකන් වරින් වර මේක update වීමක්, වෙනස් වීමක්, amendments වලට, improvements වලට subject වෙනවා. ඒතකොට අනාගතයේදී මේක improve වෙවි යන්න පුළුවන්. ඊට පස්සේ as far as Sri Lanka is concerned අපිට වැදගත් වෙන්නේ 1989 වල issue කරපු conceptual framework එක. ඒතකොට ඒක issue කරන්නේ කවුද? International Accounting Standards Board. ඒතකොට International Accounting Standards Board කියන්නේ the professional accounting bodies of the rest of the world. Rest of the world කියන්නේ ඇමරිකාව තමයි FASB. So ඇමරිකාව ඉවත් වෙලා අනිකුත් රටවල් අපි කියන rest of the world. එතන තියෙන professional accounting bodies එකතු වෙලා තමයි මේ International Accounting Standards Board එක form කරන්නේ. මුලින්ම අපි ඒකට කිව්ව ඇත්තටම International Accounting Standards Committee එක කියලා. ඒකට 2001 වල තමයි අපි name එක change කරේ IASB කියලා. නමුත් ඒක IASB conceptual framework එක කිව්වට වරදක් නැහැ. ඒතකොට IASB එකේ ප්‍රධානම වශයෙන් UK තමයි මේකේ ප්‍රධානම role එක play කරන්නේ professional accounting bodies in UK and Canada, ඒ වගේම Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, France. ඒතකොට මේ වගේ රටවල් 10ක් initially එකතු වෙලා තමයි මේ IASB එක form කරන්නේ. ඒතකොට එතනදී conceptual framework එකක් issue කරනවා for the rest of the world, that is in 1989. නමුත් එතනදී අපි කියනවා මේ conceptual framework එකට අවශ්‍ය සියලුම දේවල්, සියලුම components draw කරන්නේ FASB conceptual framework එකකින් කියලා. ඒකට FASB එක තමයි dominant conceptual framework එක තිබුණේ. සයාලගෙන් අපි මේ concepts draw කරලා තියෙනවා. ඊට පස්සේ most remarkable feature එකක් තියෙනවා. most remarkable milestone එකක් තියෙනවා. 2005 to 2010 FASB and IASB they started working together. Started working together for a one conceptual framework for the whole world. මුළු ලංකාවටම මුළු ලෝකෙටම එක conceptual framework එකක් විදිහට. නමුත් එහෙම plan කරත් ඒ project එක success වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ project එක ඇත්තටම plan කරන්නේ stages 8කින් complete කරන්න. හැබැයි ඒක පළවෙනි stage එක විතරයි complete කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්නේ 2010 වෙනකොට. ඒතර පළවෙනි stage එක කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? Objectives සහ qualitative characteristics of financial information update කරගන්න පුළුවන් වෙනවා. නමුත් rest of the items ඒ කියන්නේ definition of elements of financial statement, recognition, measurement, presentation ඔය කියන කාරණා සම්බන්ධයෙන් agree වෙන්න වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ නිසා ඒ project එක 2010 වල නවතිනවා. FASB සහ ISB ආපහු වෙන්වෙන්ව වැඩ කරන්න පටන් ගන්නවා. එතනදී ISB එක තමන්ගේ conceptual framework එකේ සියලුම components update කරලා discussion paper එකක් issue කරනවා 2013 වල. ඒතකොට discussion paper එකක් කියන්නේ මේකේ first draft එකක් conceptual framework එකේ ඒකට accounting community එකෙන් comments ගන්නවා. එතනදී professional accounting bodies, practitioners, academics, multinational companies comment කරනවා. එතකොට මේ comments ටික appropriately consider කරලා appropriate comments accommodate කරලා exposure draft එකක් එහෙම නැත්නම් second draft of the conceptual framework එකක් issue කරනවා. තව දුරටත් public comments ගන්න. accounting community එකේ comments ගන්න තව දුරටත් comments ගන්න හිතාගෙන 2015 වල exposure draft එකක් issue කරනවා. එතකොට තව දුරටත් එන comments අරගෙන ඒවා appropriately accommodate කරලා final conceptual framework issue කරනවා. කවදද? 2018 වල. 2018 වල මේ වල conceptual framework issue කරනවා. මේ conceptual framework එක become applicable from starting from 1st of January 2020. ඉඳලා applicable වෙනවා. Right. And here we have the evolution of the IESB conceptual framework. As far as Sri Lanka is concerned, we are following the International Accounting Standards Board conceptual framework. Thereby, this is what the evolution. So they have initially started that on 1989. They used to call it the framework for preparation and presentation of financial statements. Then they have revised it and then they issue the revised conceptual framework for financial reporting in 2010, and most recently they have issued the updated conceptual framework. We call it the Conceptual Framework for Financial Reporting 2018, and it becomes applicable for the periods starting from 1st of January 2020. So therefore it has just became applicable. It has just become applicable. Now we are going to discuss about the structure and components of the conceptual framework. So in fact, here we are going to looking at the components of financial statement, components of conceptual framework, which is depicted in a structured way. So as far as these components of the conceptual framework is concerned, the most important component, you know that it is going to be the objective. So therefore, it comes at the first level. So if you identify that, we can identify the objective of financial reporting at the first level. So it is the most important aspect. Then at the bottom, you can recognize, we call it the implementation of objective of financial reporting. So in fact, when it comes to the general purpose financial statement, what you can witness is there is the recognition, measurement, and the presentation of elements of financial statement. So therefore, this is the most tangible aspect. So as far as the financial statements is concerned, the general purpose financial statement, you can see the recognition, measurement, and the presentation of these elements of financial statement can be seen. So therefore, we identify it as the implementation level. The first level, we have the objective. Depending on the objective, the rest of the component is logically connected. Then at the bottom, you can see the most tangible aspects of this conceptual framework, that is about the recognition, measurement, and presentation. And in between the middle level, we call it the bridging level. In this level, it basically connects the first level and the final level. It connects the first level and the third level. So that's why we call it the bridging level. So depending on the objective, the conceptual framework identifies some qualitative characteristics of financial information like relevance and faithful representation. For information to be useful, those attributes, characteristics has to be there. And also the conceptual framework defines the elements of financial statement. That is also pretty much important. So it is put in the second level or the middle level. And in the final level, the implementation level, or what you can most obviously or most tangibly seen in the financial statements, comes to the implementation level. It is the recognition, measurement, and presentation of elements. So therefore, it is put in the three levels. Out of these three levels, the most crucial or the starting point is going to be the objectives. Depending on the objectives, the qualitative characteristics and elements is determined, and depending on that, the recognition, measurement, and presentation is decided. So here we can see a kind of logical connection. So the ultimate purpose is to accomplish the objective. And how do they accomplish? That is through the recognition, measurement, and presentation of the elements of financial statement in the general purpose financial statement. So in doing so, there is a bridging level. So these qualitative characteristics, when it comes to the objective, so it is to provide the useful financial information. For a particular information to be useful, the qualitative characteristic has to be there, and it is being defined. Then they identify what are the elements of financial statement. So it is basically serves the second level or the bridging level, we call it. තොර මෙතනදි පැහැදිලි කරනවා මොකක්ද conceptual framework එකේ components අතර තියෙන සම්බන්ධතාවය කියන එක. සහ මේ කොහොමද structured විදිහට අපි මේක present කරන්න කියලා. එතකොට අපිට conceptual framework එකේ තියෙන elements ටික components ටික ගත්තාම වැදගත්ම component එකක් තමයි objectives කියන්නේ. එතකොට objectives අපි ගන්නවා first level එක විදිහට. ඊට පස්සේ අපිට අඳුර ගන්න පුළුවන් second level එක විදිහට මේ objective එකේ අපි කතා කරනවා financial information, useful financial information resource providers ලට සපයන්න ඕනේ to facilitate their decision making. එතකොට මේ useful information එක තියෙන්න ඕනේ attributes. එහෙම නැත්නම් characteristics මොනවද කියන එක පැහැදිලි කරනවා conceptual framework එකකින්. එහෙනම් objective එක මත base වෙලා qualitative characteristics define කරනවා. ඒ වගේම financial statements වල තිබිය යුතු elements මොනවද කියන එකත් හඳුනා ගන්නවා. මේ qualitative characteristics අපි දකින්නේ ඔය කියන elements වල. So elements of financial statements විදියට asset, liabilities, income, expenses and equity items අඳුර ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඊට පස්සේ the more tangible aspect එක අපි මේ තියෙන conceptual framework එකේ තියෙන more tangible aspect එක ගැන කතා කරොත් ඒක තමයි ඇත්තටම අපිට දකින්න හම්බෙන්නේ general purpose financial statement. So general purpose financial statements ගත්තොත් අපිට දකින්න පුළුවන් elements recognize කරලා තියෙනවා. The recognize in the sense it should be presented in the statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income phase and the phase of the statement of financial position. එතකොට මේ recognition එක කියන එක අපිට most tangibly දකින්න පුළුවන් financial statement වල. එතකොට මේ recognize කිරීමේදී measure කරන්න වෙනවා. The monetary value is there. So it must be assigned. So we can see that. And also it is presented. So presented in the financial statements. So therefore that's why I call it this is the most tangible aspect. So when you take the financial statement, you can witness the recognition, measurement and presentation. And we call this third level is the implementation of the objective of financial reporting. And why do we recognize, measure and present the elements of financial statement? That is to ensure the ultimate accomplishment of the objective of the financial reporting. We do all these things, we recognize, measure and present things to ensure that the useful financial information is provided to the users, or useful financial information is provided to the resource providers. So the resource providers can make sense out of this financial statements. So therefore, the recognition, measurement, and presentation, so it must be done in line with the qualitative characteristics and across the elements of financial statements, thereby the objective is accomplished, right? Now we come to each of these aspects. We'll take separately and let's keep on discussing about these elements, right? Starting from the objective of financial reporting. So this is something that you had learned since your I levels. In fact, this is something which was decided in the conceptual framework 2010. So therefore, this particular aspect is not been updated in 2018 because it was very clearly agreed in the 2010 conceptual framework, the objective and the qualitative characteristics. So here it explained that as far as the objective of financial reporting is concerned, there it says the objective is to provide the financial information about the reporting entity that is useful to existing potential investors, lenders, and other creditors in making decisions about providing resources to the entity. So that's how we put it. So here we'll take a kind of summarized view. When it comes to the objective, it's all about providing useful financial information, right? It's all about providing useful financial information to whom? To resource providers. Resource providers in the sense investors, lenders, and other creditors are concerned. They are the resource providers. The investors would provide the financial capital, that is in the sense the equity capital. The lenders would provide the debt capital. The creditors would provide whatever the goods and services that is required for the entity to be sold in the ordinary course of business. So those parties, we call it the resource providers. So therefore, the financial information is the useful financial information is provided for the resource providers. And why do they provide that? Why an entity would provide this useful financial information to these resource providers? That is to facilitate their decision making. When they are going to decide about providing resources, they do have to make decisions. When they think of providing resources, they do have to make some decisions. For example, what those decisions are. If you take an investor, what could be the decisions that that particular party would take considering the entity? Probably it's quite simple. So they might think of whether I should buy some more shares, whether I should buy some more shares, or whether I should sell the shares what I have, or whether I should hold my investment, whether I should hold my investment. So that is a particular decision that an investor would make. So similarly, if you think about a kind of lender, they would decide whether I should provide more loan facilities or whether I should settle, whether I should uh, require the entity to settle the loans, something like that. So that is the lender's position. They would have, the lenders would have decided whether I should provide more money to the business or whether I should require this entity to settle these loans and even the other forms of credit. So especially when it comes to the creditors, they would have provided the goods and services on credit, and then they have to decide on these credit facilities, whether I should make more credit facilities available or whether I should restrict their credit facilities, something like that. And even when it comes to the investors, they have the, being the shareholder, you have the power to vote. So therefore you can think of voting in favor of a particular management decision or otherwise influence the management actions. So through your voting power, you can affect the management decisions. So this would be the decisions, the examples for decisions that a resource provider would take, the resource provider would take. So we must provide the useful financial information to facilitate their decision making, right? then when these resource providers are going to make these decisions in providing resources, they need to assess two important things. We call it, they need to assess the potential net cash inflows. So being an investor, being a lender, they would be worrying about what would be the potential net cash inflows. They need to know what would be the potential net cash inflows. The cash position need to be known. And not only that, the management need to know the stewardship of the management. What do you mean by stewardship? We call it accountability. You need to assess the accountability of the management. So if you take a company scenario, as we discussed earlier, the ownership is separated from the management. As far as the owners are concerned, they have provided resources to this managers, or we call it the managers are entrusted with the resources that is provided by the owners. එතකොට management එකට resources දීලා තියෙනවා කවුද? Owners. So therefore, management is under a responsibility to put these resources to the best use and generate a good return for these resource providers, and not only that, also to provide account on the way they have managed these resources. So therefore, as far as the stewardship or the accountability is concerned, it is of two. It consists of two main tasks. The first main task, they need to put these resources to the best use. A resources ටික අපේ ඉන්න investors ලගෙන්, lenders ලගෙන්, creditors ලගෙන් හම්බෙන resources best use එකකට දාන්න ඕනේ. ඒ best use එකට දැමීමට අමතරව ඒක සම්බන්ධයෙන් report කිරීමක් කරන්න ඕනේ. කොච්චරක් දුරකට ඔය කියන resources efficiently සහ effectively manage කරනවද කියන එක. So therefore, that is what the general purpose financial statement does. So through the general purpose financial statement, the management communicate to the owners what is there, how well they have discharged their accountability or stewardship, right? So therefore, as a resource provider, you need to assess two things: the future net cash inflows, or we call it the net cash potential for future potential for net cash inflows in the future, and the management stewardship. So these two aspects need to be assessed when you are making decisions about providing resources, right? So it is about, in broad, the objective. but අපි කියනවා මෙතනදී කතා කරේ මොකක්ද financial reporting වල තියෙන objective එක කියන එක. එතනදී අපි ඒක පැහැදිලි කරගත්තා. ව්‍යාපාරයක් සම්බන්ධයෙන් reporting entity එකක් සම්බන්ධයෙන් useful financial information වැදගත් වෙන මූල්‍යමය තොරතුරු ව්‍යාපාරයක ඉන්න සම්පත්දායකින්ට සැපයීම තමයි ප්‍රධානම අරමුණ financial reporting වලදී. ඇයි අපි එහෙම financial information provide කරන්නේ? මොකද ඔය කියන resource providers ලා entity එකක් සම්බන්ධයෙන් entity එකකට resources provide කිරීමේදී decisions make කරනවා. මේ resource provide කිරීමේදී decisions make කරනවා. මේ decisions වලට facilitate කරන්න තමයි අවශ්‍ය වෙන්නේ. මේ decision ගැනීම පහසු කිරීම සඳහා තමයි තොරතුරු සැපයීමක් කළ යුතු වෙන්නේ. එතකොට මොනවද මේ decisions කියන එක අපි හිතුවොත් අපි investor කෙනෙක් එහෙම නැත්නම් shareholder කෙනෙක් විදිහට හිතුවොත් මොනවද decisions ගන්න? එතකොට එක decision එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Depending on the financial information what made available to them, they may think of තව shares කිහිපයක්, තව shares මම මිලට ගන්නවද? Buying shares. ඕ මං ගාව තියෙන shares විකුණනවද? Selling shares. එහෙම නැත්නම් මං ගාව තියෙන shares අපි get hold කරනවා. එහෙම නැත්නම් මේ තියෙන investment එක තවදුරටත් තියාගෙන බලනවද මොකද වෙන්නේ කියලා. විකුණන්නෙත් නැහැ. තියෙන ඒවා විකුණන්නෙත් නැහැ. තවදුරටත් අලුතෙන් ගන්නෙත් නැහැ. තියෙන investment එක ඒ විදිහටම තියාගෙන ඉන්නවා. ඊට අමතරව shareholder කෙනෙක් විදිහට අපිට decide කරන්න පුළුවන් මේ management එකේ යම් යම් actions වලට අපි in favor vote කරනවද? එහෙම නැත්නම් මේකට මොකක් හරි influence එකක් කරනවද කියන එක. So being a shareholder, you have the voting rights. So depending on your voting power, you can influence the management decision in an annual general meeting or the other kinds of meetings නේ. So ඒකත් අපිට decide කරන්න පුළුවන් management එක හොඳට resources manage කරන්නේ නැත්නම්, so then we can take a decision about that. So not only that, ඒකට අපි හිතුවොත් යම්කිසි lender කෙනෙක් සම්බන්ධයෙන් ඒකට ඒ lender මොනවද ගන්න decision? ඒකට ඒ lender ගන්න decision එකක් විදිහට එයා හිතන්න පුළුවන් මේ තව දුරටත් මේ ව්‍යාපාරයට loans ලබා දෙනවද? එහෙම නැත්නම් මේ තියෙන loans settle කරන්න කියලා මේ entity එකට කියනවද? ඒකට ඒ වගේ කාරණාවක් තීරණය කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒත් එක්කම ක්‍රෙඩිටර්ස්ලා සම්බන්ධයෙන් ගත්තොත් ඒතර ක්‍රෙඩිටර්ස්ලා තමයි ව්‍යාපාරයට අවශ්‍ය වෙන සේවා සහ භාණ්ඩ ණයට ලබා දෙන පාර්ශවයන්. එතකොට මේ පුද්ගලයොත් ව්‍යාපාරයේ ක්‍රියාකාරීත්වයත් එක්ක ඒ ෆයිනෑන්ෂල් ඉන්ෆර්මේෂන් බලලා තීරණ ගන්න පුළුවන්. අපි තවදුරටත් මේ ණය පහසුකම් වැඩි කරනවද, enhance the credit facilities, එහෙම නැත්නම් තියෙන ණය පහසුකම් අත්හිටවනවද කියන එක. ඒතර මේවා තමයි තීරණ වලට උදාහරණ විදිහට අපිට ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒතර ඔය කියන විදිහේ විවිධ තීරණ ගැනීමේදී resource providersලා විසින් එයාලා consider කරන ප්‍රධාන aspects දෙකක් තියෙනවා ව්‍යාපාරය සම්බන්ධයෙන්. එකක් තමයි potential net cash inflows කියන එක. ඒතර ව්‍යාපාරයේ ඇසෙස් කිරීමකට ලක් කරනවා, ඇගීමට ලක් කරනවා ව්‍යාපාරයේ තියෙන අනාගත මුදල් ගලා ඒම් මොනවද කියන එක. ඒ කාරණාව සම්බන්ධයෙන් අවධානයක් යොමු කරනවා ඔය කියන රිසෝස් ප්‍රොවයිඩර්ස්. ඊට අමතරව මැනේජ්මන්ට් ස්ටිවර්ඩ්ෂිප් එකට අපි කියනවා accountability. එහෙම නැත්නම් ගිණුම් කටයුතු භාවය කියලා. මොකද්ද ගිණුම් කටයුතු භාවය කියන්නේ? ඒතර අපි කම්පැනි එකක් ගත්තොත් අපි දන්නවා ඕනර්ස්ලා සහ මැනේජර්ස්ලා කියන්නේ පාර්ශව දෙකක්. ownership is separated from the management. ඒතකොට ඕනර්ස්ලා විසින් ලබා දෙන සම්පත් නිවැරදිව භාවිතා කිරීමට මැනේජ්මන්ට් එක බැඳිලා ඉන්නවා. That is their responsibility. එතකොට එක් අතකින් මේ මැනේජ්මන්ට් එකට හම්බෙන resources, ඒ හම්බෙන debt and equity capital දාන්න ඕනේ නිවැරදි භාවිතයකට. නිවැරදි භාවිතයක් කියන්නේ ඉන්වෙස්ටර්ස්ලාට, ලෙන්ඩර්ස්ලාට තමන්ගේ රිටර්න් එක උපරිම වෙන විදිහේ භාවිතයක් තමයි අපි කියන්නේ to put the resources to the best use. ඊට අමතරව තව දෙයක් සිද්ධ කරන්න ඕනේ. ඒක තමයි මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් මේ resources සම්බන්ධයෙන් කොච්චර දුරකට හොඳට මේ resources manage කරාද කියන එක report කරන්න ඕනේ owners-ලාට. ඒතර කොහොමද ඒක report කරන්නේ? That is where the general purpose financial statements will come into play. එතකොට the main medium of communication is going to be the general purpose financial statements. එතකොට මේ general purpose financial statements හරහා මේ තොරතුරු communicate කරනවා වෙන්න පුළුවන් management එකට. sorry communicate කරනවා වෙන්න පුළුවන් owners-ලාට. සහ owners-ලාට දැන ගැනීමට අවශ්‍යයි not the owners, the resource providers, the owners are there. resource providers-ලාට දැන ගැනීමට අවශ්‍ය වෙයි ව්‍යාපාරයේ තියෙන අනාගත මුදල් ප්‍රවාහ මොනවද සහ ව්‍යාපාරයේ තියෙන management එක කොච්චර දුරට තමන්ගේ accountability එක discharge කරනවද? තමන්ගේ stewardship එක කොච්චර දුරට සාර්ථකව ඉෂ්ට කරනවද? ඔය කියන කාරණා දැනගන්න අවශ්‍ය වෙයි. So in knowing that, so what are the information that they want for that? So in order to assess this, the potential net cash inflows and management stewardship, the management need information about the economic resources and the claims on the economic resources. And also, they need information about changes in economic resources and claims on the economic resources. So therefore, this would be the two specific or precise information that the owner, that the investors or the resource providers want from an organization. So in broad, we call it the reporting entity should provide the useful financial information. So in that, more specifically, you can say that an organization should provide the economic resources information on economic resources and claims, and also the changes in economic resources and claims. And why do they provide this? That is to assess the management stewardship as well as the future net cash inflows. So in order to do that, we would provide an entity, the reporting entity would provide a kind of comprehensive set of financial statement. In order to communicate information about economic resources and claims, the entity would prepare a statement called Statement of Financial Position. Through that, they can communicate about the resources and claims on the resources. The resources in the sense asset, claims on the resources in the sense debt and equity capitals. So the liabilities and equity and liabilities, the other side of the statement of financial position. And also, in order to assess the future net cash flows and the management stewardship, the resource providers need information on changes in economic resources and claims. Then how the information on changes in economic resources and claims is communicated? That is through the statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income. The how the economic resources and claims that it was there at the beginning of the period can change over a period of 1 year, let's say. That is due to two main things. One thing is due to the financial performance. Due to the profit or loss position, these economic resources can be changed because it impacts on the equity, no? So therefore, the economic resources, especially the claims, can be changed. So therefore, this change is possible due to the financial performance. So then where you can find information about the financial position, that is in statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income. Then what about the other? So it is about from other events and transaction. So even when it comes to this financial performance, you can assess the financial performance on accrual terms in the statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income. But if you want to know this financial performance in cash terms, on cash basis, you can refer to the operating cash flows, which is there in the statement of cash flow statement. And also, the other events and transactions could also impact on the economic resources and claims. They will cause the economic resources and claims to be changed. Information on that you can get from the cash flow statement. So especially the investing and financing cash flows. So it is on a cash basis. And also the information about other events and transactions can also be seen in the statement of changes in equity. It will show the changes in the equity. So therefore, so this would be the comprehensive set of statement that you prepare as per the LKS 1. So therefore, now you would be clear with why this LKS 1 would require you to prepare a complete set of financial statements. The primary reason is that is to ensure that you would provide the useful financial information about the reporting entity to the resource providers, because it was a requirement of the conceptual framework. The conceptual framework would require, or that is the objective, in order to accomplish that objective, the accounting standards would require you to prepare the complete set of financial statements and give the required information to these resource providers to assess the management stewardship and the future net cash inflows. එතකොට අපි මෙතන කතා කරා අපි මුලින් සඳහන් කරා general purpose financial reporting වල objective එක තමයි useful financial information ලබා දෙනවා කාටද resource providers ලට. එතකොට අපි කිව්වා එතනදී resource providers ලට සිද්ධ වෙනවා assess කිරීමක් කරන්න, යම්කිසි assessment එකක් කරන්න ව්‍යාපාරයේ තියෙන potential නැත්නම් future net cash inflows මොනවද, ඒ වගේම management එකේ stewardship එක මොකක්ද කියන කාරණාව. එතකොට ඒ දේවල් assess කරන්න නම් management resource providers ලට information ඕන. එතකොට ඒ information තමයි economic resources and claims and change in the economic resources and claims. එතකොට financial information තමයි provide කරන්නේ entity එකක්. එතකොට මේ financial information මොනවද කිව්වොත් more specifically you can say it is economic resources and claims and changes in the economic resources and claims කියන එක. එතකොට මෙතනදී අපිට පුළුවන් මේ එක් තොරතුරු අවශ්‍යතාවය තෘප්තිමත් කිරීමට අපි දන්නවා entity එකක් විසින් financial statements හදනවා. උදාහරණයක් විදිහට to give information on economic resources and claims, they would prepare a statement of financial position. In that you can see asset information සහ equity සහ liability information අපිට ගන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට resources කියනවා assets, claims on the resources කියනවා equity සහ liability. ඒ information එක තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම තමයි යම්කිසි කාල පරිච්ඡේදයක් ආරම්භයේ තියෙන financial position එක එහෙම නැත්නම් economic resources සහ claims වෙනස් වෙන්න පුළුවන් ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන් කාරණා දෙකක් හේතුකට. එකක් තමයි ව්‍යාපාරයේ තියෙන performance එකත් එක්ක මේ කියන economic resources සහ claims වෙනස් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. උදාහරණයක් විදිහට ව්‍යාපාරයේ ලාභ අලාභ තත්ත්වය හේතු කරගෙන. එතන directly impact එකක් තියෙනවා equity වලට. ඊට අමතරව අනිකුත් items වලට liabilities සහ assets වලටත් බලපෑම් තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට ඒ information එක අපිට ගන්න පුළුවන් on accrual basis, statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income. නමුත් අපිට මේ financial performance එක cash basis ගන්න ඕන නම් අපි කරන්න ඕනේ මොකක්ද? cash flow statement එකට refer කරන්න පුළුවන්. cash flow statement එකේ තියෙනවා operating cash flows, ඒක තමයි ඇත්තටම financial performance එක. ඊට පස්සේ අපිට දකින්න පුළුවන් other events and transactions can also affect on the economic resources and claims, especially the equity. So equity related transaction. The owners can purchase more shares. So when there is a share issue, the owners can purchase shares. So therefore, it would affect the equity and also the asset. So therefore, the statement of changes in equity would provide that particular kind of information on an accrual basis. If you want to see the information on a cash basis, the cash basis එකකින් මේ other events or transactions ගැන දැනගන්න අවශ්‍ය නම් අපිට මොකක්ද කරන්න පුළුවන්? cash flow statement එකේ තියෙන investing cash flows and also the financing cash flows වලට refer කරලා ඒ තොරතුර දැනගන්න. So that is there, right? Okay. Now let's try on one activity. අපි එතකොට activity එකක් කරලා බලමු කොහොමද to what extent that you have get the things what we had discussed earlier. අපි කලින් සාකච්ඡා කරපු දේවල් කොච්චරක් දුරට පැහැදිලි වෙලාද කියන කාරණාව මෙතනින් අපිට decide කරන්න පුළුවන්. The first one, it says that the objective of financial reporting is the foundation from which the other aspects of the framework logically result. The first statement. The objective of financial reporting is the foundation from which the other aspects of the framework logically result. So in fact, that's what we've been discussing. We said that objective should come first. Depending on the objective, the rest of the components should be logically connected. So therefore, the statement is true. The second statement, it says that the general purpose financial reports are most useful to company insiders when making business strategic decisions. Do you agree on that? The general purpose financial reports are intended to meet the needs of users who are not in a position to require an entity to prepare reports tailored to their precise information needs, or for the users who are not in a position to demand whatever the information that they want from an organization. So therefore, general purpose financial reports are intended to meet the needs of external users. So in that sense, it may not be most useful to the company insiders. Yes, it may be useful, but it can't be most useful. It would be most useful for the capital or the resource providers. So therefore, this statement is false. Then the capital providers are the only user that benefit from the general purpose financial reporting. Earlier, we agreed that we prepare general purpose financial reports for the benefit of the resource providers or the capital providers. But that does not mean the rest of the parties or the other parties can make sense out of this general purpose financial report. Yes, it is true that it is intended for the capital providers, but that is not only for the capital providers. It is even the other parties like customers, like general public, like government, even the competitors, the community. All these parties can even make sense out of this financial statement. So therefore, we would say that it is not only for the capital providers, but even others can make benefit out of that. So therefore, this statement is also false. The final one, the accounting standards that rely on a body of concept, or in other words, accounting standards that is based on the conceptual framework will result in useful and consistent pronouncement in financial reporting. What do you mean by useful and consistent pronouncement? In simple words, so it is about the prescription that is made in the accounting standards, right? The accounting standards that rely on the conceptual framework would result in the useful and consistent prescription in financial reporting. Yes, that is the ultimate accomplishment. The conceptual framework need to logically and consistently develop the accounting standard. They in fact need to facilitate that. So therefore, that's it. It is true. It is true. So it's about the activity 2.1. Now let's look at the one important concept. It is about the reporting entity. In fact, that is something which it was there in the definition of uh, which it was there in the objective of financial reporting. If you go to the objective back, you can see that the entity need to provide financial information about the reporting entity. The management of an reporting entity would need to provide information about the reporting entity. But when we are discussing this slide, we haven't touched upon this reporting entity. So we have purposely done that. We have talked much about the financial information, resource providers, and their decisions and their assessment of stewardship and potential cash inflows. But we haven't touched on the reporting entity. So it was done purposely because we need to comprehensively define that. In fact, this is one of the crucial aspects, or it is a kind of new component which is added in the new conceptual framework. So this reporting entity concept, the reporting entity was not explicitly identified or explicitly defined in the conceptual framework of 2013, but conceptual framework of 2010. But in the new conceptual framework, they have come up with a precise definition for that. So therefore, one of the main changes that you can witness in the 2018 conceptual framework is they have precisely defined a reporting entity. So what do you mean by a reporting entity? Reporting entity is an entity that chooses or is required to prepare general purpose financial statement. We call it the reporting entity is an entity that chooses or is required to prepare the general purpose financial statement. There we identify two components, right? The one is reporting entity can be an entity that required to prepare the general purpose financial statements. So in our context, what are the entities that require to prepare the general purpose financial statement? In fact, so in our context, we have something called specified business entities, specified business units, SB, use and SBEs, right? So that is in line with the Sri Lanka Accounting and Auditing Standards Act number 15 of 1995. Sri Lanka Accounting and Auditing Standards Act number 15 of 1995 identifies a set of entities who would require to prepare the general purpose financial statements. So in that, for example, you would have seen in the first lecture, so you would have seen that there they had identified the companies listed in the Colombo Stock Exchange. So there are like 299 odd companies. They would require to prepare the general purpose financial statements. Not only that, the banking institutes, the insurance companies, and the finance companies, leasing companies, the stock brokers. So likewise, there are certain set of entities who would require to prepare the general purpose financial statement. So therefore, those entities are necessarily reporting entities. Reporting entities. That is one aspect of reporting entity. On the other hand, we talk about the entities that chooses to prepare the general purpose financial statement. Who are the entities that chooses to prepare the general purpose financial statement? So it could be any entity, or it could be a medium size or small scale business entity. So small scale, let's say it's a private limited company. If that particular entity decide that they want to prepare the general purpose financial statement by adopting the full set of accounting standards, yes, if they wish, they can do that. So therefore, reporting entity can be an entity that chooses to prepare the general purpose financial statement as well. So in one hand, There you can see some entities, those who would require, and on the other hand, there could be some entities, those who chooses to prepare the general purpose financial statement. The reporting entity is not necessarily a legal entity. This is also a crucial feature. So if you look at the public listed company, necessarily it's a legal entity. So if you take a bank, if you take an insurance company, those are legal entity. But in accounting, we are not focused much about the legal form. We are focusing about the substance. So therefore, in accounting, we would identify there are certain instances where that we identify something as a reporting entity based on the substance, not merely because of the legal form, but because of the substance. For example, you would learn these things in the future, in the lectures that is to be discussed in the future. So we discuss about something called business combination. So we call it group of entities. Group of entities. In that particular case, there can be like two or more entities in a given scenario. For example, let's say that there is an entity called entity A. If that particular entity purchase the majority of the shares of another entity, the entity uh, of which the entity A purchased the majority of the shares, uh, let's say it is entity B from which we obtain the shares, the entity B become a subsidiary, or it's a part of the group. So there is a one entity who purchased the majority of the shares. So therefore these two entities can be combined and we call it's a group scenario. So therefore there can be group of entities. So as far as this group of entities is concerned, it's not necessarily a legal entity, but it's a kind of reporting entity. It's because of the substance. And also in some instances, there can be an entity who would purchase like 40% of the shares of another entity. In that particular case, we call the entity of which we obtain the 40% of the shares, it's an associate of the previous, the entity who purchased these shares. So therefore, again, there's a kind of group relationship. We call it's a kind of associate and investor relationship. So in that particular case, again, a group of the entities formed in that, there we have a portion of an entity, not the 100% of the entity, because we have obtained only the 40% of the shares. So therefore, the part of that entity is attributable to the investor. So therefore, it's a portion of an entity. So this is also an example for a kind of reporting entity. In your advanced studies, you would learn these things. So at that point in time, it would make perfect sense. But at this point in time, you need not to be 100% clear on that. Some kind of idea is good enough. So then you would think about why this reporting entity is important. The reporting entity is required because you need to be very clear about the boundaries of this reporting entity. The reason is you would provide the information about the asset, liabilities, equity, income, and expenses that is relating to the reporting entity. So the income, expenses, asset, liabilities, equity that is generated by the set of economic activities of the reporting entity, you would communicate that information. That's why the reporting entity is required. So you would communicate the financial information about the reporting entity. So therefore, you must be very clear with your boundary. So it's about the reporting entity. And as far as the assumption of general purpose financial reporting is concerned, we identify that it is the going concern. So we'll believe that uh, the entity would be in operation for an unforeseeable future. The entity would continue its operation for unforeseeable future. So that's why this classification of current and non-current asset in the statement of financial position would make sense. So because you believe that the business would be in going concern. If the going concern is not there, this classification of current and non-current asset and liabilities would become inappropriate or it is not applicable. So therefore, the going concern would have implication on financial reporting. So the only assumption that we identify is the going concern.